What is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. Really excited to get into this. We are 5 episodes into this series so far. Normally the Kamen Rider shows usually last about 45 episodes, so you know that's a 1/9 of the way through, and I gotta say, guys, I've been really enjoying this series so far. While I won't quite say that it's top 0-1 yet, it's also, you know, we're only 5 episodes in, so you know it's really hard to say. But you know, so far I gotta say, one of the things about this series that is always just kind of fascinating me is there's just so much world building in the show. You know, there's so much of it that it feels like kind of the beginning of this episode is just focused solely on just recapping everything for you guys, just making sure that okay, you guys all caught up, just so you know this is what's going on here, that's what's going on there. Essentially, we start out in the very beginning at the bookstore that Toma works at, and he's kind of recapping everything while writing it all down. One theory I kind of have of what he's going to be doing with this, because he's taking notes, you know, jotting everything down. I'm actually kind of wondering if he's going to, by the end of the series, like turn all these adventures that they go on into a book of his own, and you know, probably sell that as a fictional story, similar to Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, where one of the main characters actually took all the events that happened in Kamen Rider Dragon Knight and she sold it as a fictional story. So I'm wondering if we're going to get something like that here with this season. I think it would be kind of cool, and kind of a, you know, whether or not it was intentional as a nod, I'd consider it to be a nod to Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. But one weird thing I have to point out right off the bat in this episode that really took me off guard: Ogami's personality shift. Now, I'm not going to say his wacky personality that kind of comes from left field is out of character for him. Mostly because we've only really gotten him in 2 episodes. However, in those 2 episodes, he just seemed a very no-nonsense, straight to the point, type of a character. Like, for example, he wasn't impressed with Toma because he thought Toma was just really weird, and that's just very odd coming from him in this episode. Now, yes, there is kind of the whole factor of, you know, he does see that even though Toma's like, you know, kind of an odd fellow, he's able to get the job done, so maybe that just kind of got him to, you know, loosen up a lot more, so he starts acting more like a dad in a lot of ways, like that goofy dad who always tells like the bad jokes that he knows are bad, but he still has fun telling these jokes over and over. So I don't know, it's definitely very interesting, and I'm curious to see if later on throughout the series, if this is going to be like kind of the more common status quo that we get from him, or if he's going to kind of go back to his serious don't mess with me type attitude that he had before. Either way, you know, he's still a blast. I think he's probably the actor that plays this guy is probably my favorite actor in the show so far, but that's just so far, though. It's that we still got like 40 episodes to go, so who knows, my opinion on that could change later on. Also, we finally find out what this guy's name is. So we find out that his name is Tetsuro. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, and we find out that his job, he's basically the blacksmith for the Kamen Riders, working on the swords, making sure that they're being treated correctly. One thing we find out about him in this episode is that this guy has kind of an attitude problem, like not like a serious attitude problem, but you can definitely tell he's straight to the point, somewhat grumpy is how he kind of comes off. When he found out that found out that Toma used 3 Wonder Ride books on his sword, he did not take that well at all. He's like, no, you got to treat these swords with respect, man. So, you know, you could tell he's very passionate about what he does, essentially. While this meeting is going on, essentially this whole meeting is kind of just one big excuse to recap everything that's happened in the last 4 episodes, and kind of like really delve deep into the lore of the show. We do find out that Kento the entire time is being really quiet, kind of acting strange. Toma does try to address this, but he just kind of continues to act very weird. And then the very next scene, we do find out that Kento is the son of Kamen Rider Calabur. Now, we did get a hint of this earlier on. We knew that there was some relation when it came to Calabur. We didn't know exactly what it was, but now we finally have the confirmation that that Calabur was his father, and he was once a good guy, like part of the team essentially, until something, we're still not sure what it is, happened, and he, basically betrayed all the Kamen Riders. We get a weird subplot, and I bring this up now just to let you guys know that I'm going to talk about this at the very end of the episode, but essentially the subplot for the episode is Rintaro and Meg kind of going on their own side quest to investigate all the bubbles that we've been seeing like since the very beginning of the season. So that's kind of about it that I'll say for now. Although, actually, there is one kind of thing I wanted to bring up about May in this episode, is that she really seems to, like we've seen before, want to be part of the team, essentially. And someone on our Facebook page did comment on episode 2 saying that, it's very possible that she might become a Kamen Rider sometime down the line. And I the more I'm like looking at her wanting to constantly be part of the team and go on the adventures with all the other riders, and plus we look at how in the previous episode she did actually help out the writers in freeing all the people who were trapped in the fantasy world, so it definitely does seem to be a huge possibility, at least to me, anyways. And plus, to my opinion, it's always nice to have another female Kamen Rider, so I'm totally on board if that ends up happening later on down the line. So we get a scene where essentially Toma does try to confront Kento about his strange behaviors and all that kind of stuff. Essentially, Toma doesn't quite know that Calabur is his father at this point in the episode, so he's trying to get Kento to kind of open up to him, but in his attempt, essentially Kento just really tries to change the subject and tries to, get Toma to reenact I believe it was actually a real book this time. It was Huckleberry Finn, if I'm not mistaken, which, I thought was kind of a really funny scene with the two of them acting it out. But then, of course, there's the monster of the week who gets unleashed, and it's like this piranha type being, and we find out as soon as they go into action, Kento and Toma, that as soon as Kento does transform, we realize, okay, so he was definitely the Kamen Rider that saved Toma and Rintaro in the previous episode. Essentially we get a fight where he's trying to take on the piranha monster of the week looking thing, whereas Toma's trying to save a bunch of civilians that are on a cruise ship being attacked by CGI piranhas. But as Toma tries to go save these civilians, he's suddenly attacked by Kamen Rider Saber. The two of them kind of switch, so Toma ends up going after the monster of the week, and Kento tries to go after Kamen Rider Saber, and he tries to confront him about, the fact that he betrayed all the Kamen Riders. But as he tries to do this, Calabur just completely remains silent the entire fight and eventually just retreats, and we end up getting no answers. The next scene, though, I gotta say was pretty funny, because we get another scene with Ogami trying to be funny again, but this time he does it in order to try to cheer up Kento. And I gotta say, Kento's reaction to Ogami's a little bit that he does, or little gag that he does, I should say, it reminded me of Fua from Kamen Rider 01, where Aruto would always, tell his random jokes of the day, and you would have Fua trying so hard not to laugh because he always comes off as serious, but of course there's the fact that he always has that hidden sense of humor, so anytime Aruto would tell a joke, you would just see him trying so hard not to laugh. That's the vibe that I got from this scene, and I thought it was really funny. It was a real cute scene for being able to have Ogami be the one to try and cheer Kento up. But in the end, Ogami does tell Toma that it essentially should be him that tries to confront Kento and try to cheer him up, due to their childhood friendship that Toma doesn't quite remember all the way, but he does remember a bit of it. And that's what actually kind of leads into this scene, is Toma does kind of confess to Kento that he knows something happened 15 years ago, but he's not quite sure what it is. Kento does kind of ask Toma, aren't you going to ask me about Kamen Rider Calabur? Because, the whole fight that he was having with Calabur, he does refer to Calabur as his father, and more than likely Toma did hear that, but, Toma just doesn't think it's an issue, as long, it's him having a father who betrayed them doesn't really say anything about Kento's character in Toma's eyes, to Toma, this doesn't change anything about their friendship or their relationship at all. And I thought that was a really sweet moment in this scene. Essentially, Kento doesn't really tell Toma about his past, but they do get off on a really good note with Toma just letting Kento know that, whenever he needs his help for anything, just always let me know and I will be there for you. The monster of the week, of course, returns as, once again, actually, I didn't get an image up here, but just like in the previous episode, Toma does use his knowledge of books to kind of, really get to know the monster of the week, because the monster of the week is just a random piranha who they defeat really easily, but Toma, of course, knows that piranhas never really go alone. They always go in packs, which leads him to believe that there must be like another one out there. So they use their motorcycles to basically take out an army of these CGI piranhas, and eventually they do take out the monster of the week, the actual like head piranha, I guess you could say. And I'll say this though, so in my previous episodes, with the exception of episode 2, I feel like when I was talking about episodes 1, 3, and 4, the thing I've been constantly praising the show about, much like with most Kamen Rider shows, are their fight scenes. For this episode, though, I do have to be honest and say that none of the fight scenes were bad, but none of them necessarily really stuck out. They, instead of getting kind of like the one really big fight scene that we've gotten in those 3 episodes that I mentioned, it was essentially just 2 fight scenes, but neither one of them are really that memorable to my opinion. I did like that the CG motorcycle fights were like very short, and it wasn't fully CG like it was in episode 2. Essentially, like, you did have real motorcycles just filmed with CG piranhas, and it wasn't even filmed in front of a green screen, because you could definitely tell they were filming like on the road, which means the piranhas were actually like kind of animated within that scene. Partially why the piranhas look like extra fake in this episode, but honestly that didn't really bother me at all. I thought it was fine because it was shortened to the point, and I'll take fight scenes like this over the Disney era Power Ranger motorcycle fight scenes that you see in like Power Rangers SPD, Mystic Force, and Overdrive. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of those type of fight scenes anyways. I feel like Kamen Rider does like the motorcycle fights way better than the Disney Power Ranger seasons. But yeah, at the very end of the fight, once they do defeat the monster of the week, we do have another really kind of heartwarming moment where Kento does let Toma know that when he gets his memories back, that's when he's fully going to be ready to open up to him, essentially. We then cut back to Rintaro and Mei. Although this actually, I should say, happened earlier in the episode, I wanted to wait till the very end to touch upon this stuff because, essentially every scene with them was like about 20 seconds long, and then it would just cut straight back to the kind of the main plot of the episode. But essentially, as they continue to investigate the bubbles, they come across Disaster. I think that's how Disaster. I don't know. I really don't know how to pronounce that name. I think it's just Disaster, as in like it's supposed to be short for disaster. That'd be my guess. But yeah, they do come across him, and here we find out that there was a reason that this monster was locked up earlier, because we then see one of the other main villains, Zuos, who we've only just recently, even though he's been in the show since episode 1, we've only just now learned his name. Like that okay, so that's one thing I gotta say is kind of funny about the show so far, is that there's so many characters in the series that we don't even really learn everyone's name until episode 5, and even then there's still like 2 more henchmen in this in the show that I still don't know the names of. Yes, I know I could just Wikipedia it. I'm sure like on the Kamen Rider wiki, all the names are there, but I feel like, I shouldn't have to though when it comes to knowing the lore of a TV show. Like that should be given to me within the show itself. But yeah, no, I do just find that kind of funny. We're 5 episodes in and I still don't know everyone's name yet. But anyways, we do find out that he does try to put an end to Disaster, but right before doing so, he transforms into a really really awesome looking monstrous Kamen Rider, obviously with intentions of destroying Disaster or capturing him again. I'm not 100% sure there, but yeah, guys, this was another really cool episode. If I really had any complaints about this, and it's weird too, because in some areas it was really good, but in some areas it was just really off, and that's definitely the editing in this episode. Now, one thing the editing did an amazing job of in this episode is what's in film, it's called invisible editing. Essentially, like, for example, you'll have a scene where a character might be turning around and it might start off as a wide shot, but as he's like halfway through turning around, suddenly, you know, there's a close-up of them turning around. If you don't notice, like, when it goes from a wide shot to a close-up, that's called invisible editing, essentially. And I feel like the episode does a great job of that type of editing. You know, you got like a lot of consistency, very few continuity errors when it comes to transitioning from one angle to another, which is, you know, a very, very hard thing to do as an editor. You know, it definitely is something that is very important to get down when you edit a film or a TV show, but it's also something that takes a bit of skill. The thing that this episode does not do a very good job of in terms of editing, though, is definitely transitions. Essentially, you'll have one scene going on and it'll cut to the next scene with zero transition. Like, the very beginning is kind of the big example of that. You have a scene that takes place in the bookstore, but then with zero transition, we're suddenly back at the North Pole in the Kamen Rider home base. So there were a couple scenes that kind of played out like that, and I feel like if this episode had a little more transitions in between scenes, the editing would have been just fine, and I wouldn't have even, you know, commented on the editing. It was just that lack of transition that I needed to point out. And again, even though the fight scenes weren't bad, there was definitely nothing that really stood out in this episode, to my opinion. But again, I guess just having plain fight scenes every now and then isn't a bad thing, especially when you look at the fact that we've had 3 episodes, all of them carrying really amazing fight scenes so far. So a couple of okay fight scenes here and there is totally fine. Overall, though, great episode. But at the end of the day, guys, those are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below if you guys like this episode. If you didn't, definitely let me know why, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But guys, above all, just remember, keep it A+.